Today's session is called Putting Your Best Skills Forward in Career Transition. Now let me take a moment to introduce our speaker for today's session. Kevin Tennant is a partner at LHH Knightsbridge's Interim Executive Management practice. His group helps organizations acquire expert talent to help with gaps due to resignations, unexpected exits, and strategic change projects. Having practiced both full-time and interim executive search, he has a unique perspective on how professionals in transition better differentiate themselves to land meetings which lead to productive and engaging conversations. Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Welcome to everyone attending today. I'm quite excited about the content we have to share today. And to give you some context, to help people that were impacted by COVID, I started publishing articles a couple of months ago. Over the last 2 months, there's been about 7 or 8 articles, and they've been talking about better ways to promote your skills, make better use of your time when you're out there searching, and also about considering interim as an option in your career transition. Response was very positive, and in particular, one particular area, the unique value statement has resonated with a lot of people. So we decided to hold this webinar today to really focus in on that particular area. Now, by the end of the session today, you're going to understand how the market's changed, and boy, has it ever changed. You're going to know how to identify your particular skills that really are going to be in demand in this particular marketplace, and then you're going to know how to take them to market and engage with potential clients as well as potential employers. And we're going to engage you in a framework to help develop your unique value statements that you're able to evolve over time. Now, I would like to start off with a poll. Before we begin, I would like to see how you're doing in your self-marketing efforts so far. To do that, I'd like you to answer the poll question that's on the screen. The question is, when reaching out to new contacts to arrange new meetings, what percentage of outreaches via email or telephone are you able to convert into meetings and calls? So there's 4 options there. Of course, less than 10%, between 11 and 25%, 25 to 50, and over 50. So if you can take some time and start answering that question now.
So we're about 3/4 finished there, Kevin. I'll just give a couple more seconds for people to cast their vote, and then we'll end the poll and see where we come up.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, we've got about 80% voted, so I'm going to close the poll now.
Wonderful.
And we'll just share those results.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for responding, everybody. Looking at the results, there are some surprises and not surprises in the results. I'm going to take a look at it just for a moment. For the less than 10%, it was about 28% of the participants that are achieving that level. 11 to 25%, 30% are achieving that level. And 25% of you are getting between 25 and 50% response. 17% of you are getting greater than 50%. And when this is over, I'm going to hand my crown over to you. You should be teaching this. So really good. It's quite encouraging, and I'm encouraged by the fact that each of you are interacting and getting out into the marketplace. And I don't think it's going to be a surprise that that is the strategy that'll get you about 80% of your success. So if you care to share some of your most successful tips for getting meetings, feel free to do so in the chat area as we proceed. We really want everyone to get the most out of this. And I certainly don't have all the answers because I'm only one person. So share away, and certainly like to get some good dialogue going there. The good news is there's always room for improvement. And if you were able to increase the percentage of outreaches that actually became meetings, wow, that would have an increase in the number of opportunities you get. It would increase, the number of people you get to know. And I would say that it probably would shorten the time it takes you to land, either in an interim situation or on a full-time role. Now, I would like to illustrate a case study from someone who has used the unique value concept to land an engagement. William Oliver is an experienced interim executive. His focus is in the transportation and third-party logistics sector. And he's launched a number of Canadian operations for international firms. He's led the sales function for some of these organizations and been hired to execute turnarounds. So his unique value is he's able to help private equity funds turn around failing assets, and he does it very quickly. So this is really of value to these funds because they're then able to use the increased value to get more money, to buy more, and so on and so on. Bill and I spoke in May, and I introduced the unique value statement concept to him, and he latched onto it immediately. And he decided to do a dedicated marketing effort to private equity partnerships that focus on the third-party logistics and transportation sectors. So you can see some of the results here. He sent out 40 emails, which is a fairly small sampling, and he got a 68% response and converted 45% of those to actual calls. And with that amount of effort, he landed an engagement. So, and this is during the pandemic. I mentioned that we spoke in May, and he told me about 2 weeks ago that he's landed an engagement and he's actively working on it. So this is what's possible by somebody that is really, really focused on their plan and committed to following through. So I'd like to throw some caution into this though, and Bill would certainly agree. These are exceptional results. And I think there's a couple of things here that work to his credit. He did a solid job of defining his niche. He was very, very clear about what that was. And then he had the discipline to do the work and really follow up. There was a bit of luck involved as well along the way. And certainly I think you would find that LHH's career transition coaches would tell you it normally takes 3 to 4 times this effort in order to get a result. Now, let's look at our agenda for today.
Kevin, before we go there, I might share some comments that are in the chat just about your example there and prior to. We've got one comment here saying building a rapport first, found that helps. And another comment here saying doing research ahead of time, having a clear value proposition, understanding some of their needs and pain points, ensuring the email is about a conversation and info sharing and not asking for work, and using one's network to open doors, offering something back.
Excellent. Those are really, really good. Thank you. In particular, it sounds like on the unique, the value proposition, some people may have pre-seen this presentation, but that's good. Thank you, Nancy. And feel free to pop in if you get others as well along the way, Nancy. We want to keep this interactive. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to take a look at what is a very different market. I don't need to belabor that point. We're going to look at a new tool, the unique value statement, that's going to help you unbundle your skills to tackle business problems that companies are really facing today. We're going to help you identify what skills and capabilities could be unique, and you're going to create something that's very different from a typical 30-second elevator pitch. We're going to look at that framework, and then we're going to talk about how to take this to market. How do you use it every day when you're out there sending emails, making phone calls, having virtual meetings? And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end. Now, to begin with, let's take a look in the current market. Now, when we woke up on April 1st, our economy had been shuttered. Unemployment had gone to 12.3% from 5.5% in February, completely unprecedented. The economy had receded by almost 10%. The initial impact was on lower wage jobs in the service sector as the government's locked us all down. But we're now seeing it really start to hit the professional and knowledge worker type of work. And our career transition programs are unfortunately becoming a little busier. and we see very strong forecasts through the rest of 2020 and 2021 in terms of the change that's about to happen over the next little while. The impact on professional jobs from COVID is just beginning. As we progress through the next few years, we're going to see a lot more change. Some of the impacts will be reduced global trade. COVID has just made everyone a whole lot more gun shy in terms of how they go about doing things, less travel, etc. The trade tensions that the North American zone is experiencing with China is another area of concern. Certainly low oil prices definitely impact the Canadian economy. And organizations are really going to be looking at how they accelerate their digitization agenda. Organizations like financial services in particular, which I serve, is looking to try and eliminate what they call people interrupts. In other words, they want to deliver all of their services without a lot of human intervention. So entire business models are also in tatters. Retail was already a bit of a train wreck, and the pandemic has just really moved it up. We've been hearing almost weekly of very large, venerable retailers closing up shop, going into CCAA or Chapter 11 in the US. So it's been a huge impact. So corporate focus is now on survival. That's the word of the week, survival, which really drives shorter term thinking. They're thinking about what do I need to do to survive and keep my business afloat for the next month. And that dominates their thinking. And so looking at staffing and hiring, they're saying that they don't necessarily need another, VP of finance or CHRO or any particular role, but they need some of the skills that those particular roles encompass. And they really can't get full-time headcount approved, but they can and will provide some discretionary budget in order to eliminate a nagging problem. So some of the areas that businesses are telling us they're going to be focused on over the next little while are, certainly the business resilience plan. Some organizations transition to virtual very quickly, others not so quickly. They're going to need to improve their infrastructure to support a much larger remote workforce. They're going to have to make virtual working a permanent part of their operations. And this means looking at how they collaborate when not everyone's in the same building. Businesses are also moving their systems to the cloud. That's going to be more technology investment. And they are really looking at how they're going to train their managers to lead remotely, and also how to train their people to be productive and accountable remotely. Now, let's look at this, how this will impact you as you pursue new opportunities. So let's get the shock over with. Full-time hiring, according to Gartner, is down by 38%. And we've certainly seen this in terms of the Indeed hiring indexes, in terms of the number of postings and things like that. So it's really down. So, the focus is going to be very much on skills. Gartner also indicated that 58% of organizations have seen a shift in what type of skill they need post-COVID or as a result of COVID. And the pressure to bring those skills in has intensified quite a bit. So they don't have time to go through an extensive full-time search, but they will make short-term commitments on a contract or an interim basis. The good news is, though, that you're still needed. And, it's recommended, though, and my personal feeling that you shouldn't get locked into the concept of a role or a job. Many of you could find yourself in an interim engagement over the next little while. And in that role, you'll probably use a subset of your skills rather than all of your skills. So this requires a different way of thinking about your career and how you approach networking and engaging in your search. So I'm going to ask you, can you pivot to being engaged in an interim gig rather than having to be employed in a job? Those of you who are agile will have far more success in your search. Some things to know. It's going to get harder to get an executive's attention. They're busier than ever. The stakes are survival, nothing short of survival. And so they're going to be very focused on that. The number of people in transition, as I alluded to earlier, is going to increase, and it's going to continue over the next 2 years to grow and grow. So there's going to be a lot more networking calls coming in, and as you know, being senior people yourself, you've received them, and it can be a handful. Therefore, having a clear and compelling message that you're able to go to that is on par with their particular situation is going to help you a lot. So, and a new factor, and this is brand new, that we have not seen, we didn't see this in the 2008-2009 crisis. This pandemic, this great virtual experiment has worked by and large. And so it's completely changed how organizations can attract and bring in and engage skills. And it now means your competition could be global. Now, I don't want to scare you, but what I want to point out is you can turn the tides on this one yourself and use this to your own benefit. Another thing I want to mention is companies in smaller cities find it really, really hard to find top-rate experts in technical areas as well as executive roles. So it makes sense to include them in your search and increase the amount of competition that you have in your search. And all of this makes sense certainly for interim roles, but it also makes sense for full-time roles because we don't expect that there will be a significant change in skills buying behavior going forward. Now, some of you may be saying, Kevin, I have an elevator pitch. I'm good to go. What else do I need? Well, here's the thing. An elevator pitch focuses on you and your history, and the challenges that your targets are facing may overshadow their interest in your history. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it may not fit their current context. If that is the case, you're not going to make the first impression you had hoped to. They want to know what you can do for them. Their dominant question is, what's in it for me? When somebody is struggling to keep their business afloat, an articulate professional coming forward and presenting an idea that can help them just might get their attention. As you know, if you don't get their attention, you won't get their assistance. Now, this webinar is all about creating your unique value statement, as we said earlier, which is different than the 30-second elevator pitch. So coming out of the webinar, you're gonna have everything you need to create these statements and use them to land meetings and hopefully get invited in for full-time opportunities or interim engagements. And for those of you in transition, this also could be an incredible way to land new networking meetings with people that you weren't able to get meetings with before. Now, let's see what a unique value statement is. It's a statement that focuses on them. It really focuses on them and their problems and how your skills can help. So skills are a subset of your role. So we're not going to be talking about, I am a CFO. We're going to talk about, I am really, really good at this. And if you do your research well, you're going to get some traction with them. In the current market, organizations have a lot of problems to solve, and you may be able to leverage one or a number of your skills in order to land an interim engagement. So unique value statements will address their issues or potential issues and create a springboard for communication. Now, let's look at the elements of a unique value statement. So just very high level, we're going to go into this more detail shortly, but the elements are, first of all, who's your target? And that could be expressed by industry or any number of different attributes. The second is what is or what could be their problem. This is known as pain for those of you that have heard about solution selling in the past. Number three, what skills are you going to leverage and what will you do? This is how you're going to go about fixing their problem. What would be the end result? And this is really, really important that you articulate this. This is where metrics and everything come in. And finally, proof, because anybody can make a claim, but you want to be in a position where you can show that you've done this multiple times. Now, let's define what we mean by unique value. First of all, when I see unique, I don't mean you're the only person on the planet that knows how to do this. It really is quite broad, but it's a skill that many people could have, but the difference is you apply it in such a way as to get a superior result. So all skills have two aspects. The first aspect is mechanics. This is the science. It's the what to do. And a lot of skills are pretty easy to learn at this level. Pick up a book, read them, and bingo, you've got them. Application is the art, and that's the why to do. And this is context and relevance. And this is gained through experience and skinning your knees and many late nights of scratching your head trying to figure it out. So let me give you an example of something that is difference between art and science. Most finance professionals know how to create a cash flow statement. If that's the case, why is cash such a real big problem for most businesses? It's because many professionals know the mechanics. They know how to, or they know how to put it together. It's not that difficult, but they're lacking the art. They don't know how to use it as a strategic business tool. So as you're looking at your own skills over the next couple of days, you're going to find that there are certain things that you do really, really, really well, and you're going to find things that you don't do so well. And the difference is often how much time you've spent applying the skills. Also, it's a matter of whether your orientation is towards people or towards analytical. So looking at your own skills, you're going to be able to categorize them into 3 levels. Level 1, which is the triangle at the bottom, is common to all. So for example, if you're an executive and one of your skills is getting results through people, this is not really too special. It's pretty much table stakes. And so it's not going to be a unique value skill that you possess. Level 2, at this level, you have some noticeable uniqueness to some of your, some of your peers. However, other people can catch up. It's easy to replicate, and it's just really a short-term advantage that you have. Level 3, this is where your unique value is likely going to reside. And these are the skills that are unique and they're hard to replicate. This is where you have achieved what many people would call mastery. You have the science down and you also are an artist at it. You can apply these skills far better, and this is where your unique value is to offer. Now, let's look at why this is relevant for your search. For those of you interested or open to interim engagements, your ability to isolate and articulate your most salient skills is really how you're going to compete in the interim market. You need to be able to present yourself as that, classical rock star. That's an oxymoron in a way, but you need to be able to demonstrate a strong skill. Interims get hired for skills that they've used before and they've already been through the process. Companies are going to hire you because really you're going to reduce the risk in making big mistakes and what have you. So that's really why they're going to hire you, and you need to be able to articulate that. Now let's look at some triggering questions that will help you identify your best skills. So your mind might be spinning right now with thoughts, and I've seen chat lighting up a little bit, so people might have been putting some ideas forward, but I really hope that you have some ideas already. If not, here are some memory joggers that you can use. So the first one is, as you progress from company to company, there may be certain things that you are continually fixing. Now, the interesting thing is that, those problems existed when you arrived, and either somebody didn't notice them or they didn't know how to fix them, and you did, and the company has really benefited from that. The next one is, people in your work circle are observing you, and they often know what you do better than you do. And so, think about what people are constantly coming and asking for assistance with. Maybe it's a technical skill like Excel. Maybe you are a macro genius or can write VBA code or whatever the case may be. Or maybe you're really good at motivating people. So these are some of the skills that you might be able to utilize in unique value statements. What are some of the recurring successes that are constantly mentioned in all your appraisals? Again, another clue. Where have you been able to significantly increase efficiency, etc.? These are areas that are really, really important. And I'll pick one out in specifically. Increasing revenue is not just a sales responsibility. It's an enterprise responsibility. We are all salespeople, and we have to remember that. So my personal favorite is passion. So if money wasn't the issue, what would you do? This is where it becomes a get to do versus a have to do. And this is really, really important. I find that a lot of people that come to me saying, Kevin, I'd like to pivot into, not-for-profit, are looking for a get to do, and they're tired of the have to do. And so, really, once people understand what their real skills are, often they become very, very excited about continuing to, look at their unique value skills and to stick in the for-profit business as well. So it's really the work you're doing. It's not necessarily the environment you're in all the time. And that's a big issue for people. So when looking at your own skills, there's multiple categories. For some of you, you might be focused more on the technical and the relationship. Some of you might be focused on the leadership management side of things. Now, let's look at how we can express a unique skill in a comprehensive statement. To help you, we borrowed something, Moore's value positioning statement. Jeff Moore put this out in 1991 in his book, Crossing the Chasm. The whole idea behind it is that he was coaching organizations that were selling disruptive technology products into new markets. So that's always a challenge because, certainly being the first on the street is a very tricky thing to do. So he had to come up with a very inventive way of positioning things. So now let's look at this framework and unpack the elements, go into more detail. So the first element is defining your target. So as I said earlier, this could be defined as the sector of the organization. It could be the size. Business maturity level is another way of defining it. Maybe they're a startup. Maybe they are a very mature organization that is sort of leveled off in terms of sales, and they need a kick in the pants to get going. So if you have experience with these types of targets, you know their business. And by defining this, it provides you other benefits, not just your ability to articulate to people, but it also allows you to be focused and deliberate in your networking so you're not wasting time. It helps you to source targets better. It helps you to claim expert status because if you really know this marketplace, you know what you're talking about. And when you're networking with people and asking them to refer you, it helps them refer you because they know more about what you can do. Now, on to element 2. What challenge are you proposing to assist them with? This is part of the statement that should elicit a response that, yeah, I'm experiencing that problem. That's my issue. Now, this needs to be rather specific. Simply saying that you're going to help an organization that's struggling to increase sales is way too specific. When describing the pain points, it's to your benefit to cause them to squirm a little bit. For them thinking, oh man, I'm getting a lot of flack from the board on this. This is really not going well. The CEO has been all over me on this. And if we don't hit forecast next month, I'm probably going to be gone. Either way, my bonus is gone. So maybe if I listen to this person, I might be able to actually fix this and keep my job. Now, I might be going a little overboard on the example, but really only a little. I was once told by a sales trainer that you need to stir up their pain to hurt them before you can help them. Now, that may sound mean, but really what you're doing is you're motivating them. You're not manipulating them, but you're giving them a reminder that this is something that maybe they should get to, that they haven't to yet. And it's really, really helpful. I like the quote here by Dale Carnegie. I won't read it off, but I share this with you to drive home the point that people that you're networking with who can potentially hire you on an interim or a full-time basis are people with egos and emotion. So it's going to serve you to stir up some emotion so they're more receptive to your proposition. Now let's look at element 3. In element 3, you describe the skill or capability that you're going to apply to solve the problem. Pretty straightforward. These are going to be the skills that you have mastery with. They really are your unique value. And if they're experiencing the pain you mentioned back in element 2, this is where they're going to really start buying into you. And this is where you explain how you're going to help, of course, after you've heard. So this part should be descriptive enough so that they should be thinking, yeah, that could work. Now on to element 4, the statement of benefit. this is the end state. This is what you're going to deliver. So this is basically, I've hired Kevin to do this, and this is my end state, and I feel really good. I got my bonus, everything. This should elicit a response. I want that. I want that too. So you don't want to overpromise, but you do want to, and you do want to be able to deliver once they engage you. So be careful about going too far with this. And this is an area where you can have some metrics in place, and you know, the metrics really give context. Now, finally, element 5, proof. Show me where you've done it. I'm from Missouri. Show me. Really, really important. This establishes that you've done this in the past, and it solidifies your credibility. It doesn't mean you've done it perfectly. Don't ever think that you have to have done it perfectly to be the expert, but you learn something, and you're going to accelerate another organization's transition from where they are now to the future desired state. Now, a few cautions. I don't want you to get wrapped up in following this format exactly. I don't want to paint you into a corner. You don't have to puzzle. You can definitely color outside the lines. This is a guide. My caution, though, is to make sure all 5 elements are present in your unique value statements. And also, you're going to get some situations where you present the wrong one. If that's the case, it's not a problem. You have demonstrated some knowledge of their business, their sector, and you've earned the right to ask for a couple of things. First of all, you could say, okay, fair enough. What are some of your issues that you're facing right now? Or you may have a good idea already and you can present another value statement, but asking questions is always more powerful because it becomes more interactive. And then ask to be referred into their network. Perhaps some of their contacts are experiencing the problem that you've just described. Also, one caution, jargon. Really try and minimize it. Try and keep it very, very straightforward. So for example, I hear a lot of people throwing around this term actionable insights. And I roll my eyes every time I see that, or hear that rather. It's better to say something like, let's just figure out the real cost and figure out the best options. Pretty straightforward, just talk like a human being. Now, let's look at an example of a unique value statement. So in this particular case, I'm going to come back to cash flow. It seems to be one I keep using and using and using. So in this particular case, the first element is the target customer. And I'm a strong advocate of extreme focus. You want to be niching your networking. You can tighten your customer focus as much as you want. LHH's career transition coaches will tell you that you need between 150 and 250 initial meetings to generate enough leads to land something. So I would recommend that using the same metrics for those of you that are looking for interim engagements. Don't count on the luck that Bill had because it might fail you. The second element here is the pain. So this one is the dance of cash in every business, because if you are a food manufacturer, your raw material suppliers want their money now, and your retail suppliers pay you manana. It's a very, very difficult situation. So you're always in your line of credit, you're always reporting to the bank, and it's always a delicate balance. So pick issues that are critical to your targets. And this one's critical in food manufacturing. So, you know, for anybody that's in finance, I may have given you a freebie here. The third element is what skills are you going to apply in order to eliminate or to reduce this pain? In this case, the individual used negotiation skills. And it's pretty interesting to find that in a lot of cases, you solve a business problem using a soft skill. And that's very, very common these days. So the fourth element, what is the result? And this is what you're going to deliver. This is, you know, basically this problem's going to go away and they'll be happy about that. And then of course, proof, very, very important. Gives them the comfort that you're at mastery level at doing this. Now, that's the format and the approach to creating your unique value statement. I'd recommend that you create unique value statements for at least 3 to 5 of your skills. Skills that you really feel that you've achieved mastery at. For some of you at the individual contributor level, that's going to be your technical and interpersonal skills, things like negotiation. For more senior leaders, it's going to be your strategic and leadership skills. Now, let's talk about how you use this as you interact with contacts in the marketplace. In today's market, most opportunities, both full-time and interim, are acquired through networking. While I'm not aware of a specific scientific study that backs this, anecdotally, we believe that between 70 and 80% of total opportunities are available via the hidden market. And I think this is probably going to be increasing because a lot of organizations are finding that they can attract people without posting. And they're getting people networking to them all the time, and they're able to get people in no problem. So, to expect the highest level of success, we'd suggest that you want to be doing 6 to 10 meetings a week, 25 to 35 hours of effort. It's really, really important. So for interims, as somebody mentioned earlier, do your research ahead of time. If you do your research, you might know which unique value statement to position with. And what you would do is find a mutual contact, preferably, that can refer you. That's easy to do at LinkedIn through the common connections feature on LinkedIn. You could pick up the phone and call them, although not everyone's in their office right now. You could send them a message on LinkedIn or send them an email if you can find their business email address or figure it out. Once you've landed a meeting, then you're in a position where you can ask more questions, provide the proof, etc. For those that are seeking full-time, once again, the research is important, and your goal in that particular case is definitely a networking meeting, and the research may uncover a bit about their challenges and such, so that you can know what unique value statement to lead with. And regardless of whether you're seeking full-time or interim, you'll be able to really better articulate your value. This is going to increase your credibility when you're out there in the marketplace, and you'll be able to easily identify who to be referred to. Now, let's put this into action. So here's our recommendation for next steps. Now, you should be starting out with some brainstorming. Start out with the brainstorming the scenarios and the skills you've mastered. You can go back to the triggering questions that were presented earlier to help jog your memory. Start writing drafts of them. Editing is the key. All of the articles that I wrote on LinkedIn over the last 8-9 weeks weren't brilliant until they were edited by our marketing director. And that's really, really the key. So test it. Ask a friend to listen to you pitch it. And even ask your teenage or adult children to listen to it. And if they're listening to you and they don't understand you and they say, "Mom, Dad, you sound like a Martian," you've got some work to do. So, and you may have to strengthen your statement if it's lacking emotion. It's really, really important that that elicits emotion from the person reading or listening to it. And keep on refining until it's solid. So formulating these is quite a challenge. Some people get it right away. I've seen people sit down and knock one off perfectly right off the bat. And then I've seen some people just struggle with it for days and days. Just be patient with yourself. Cut yourself some slack. Now, to further refine your work, we're going to host a workshop this coming Tuesday at 2 p.m. Registration link will be sent to you tomorrow. And essentially, this is going to be an opportunity for some very brave people to share their unique value statements and get some peer feedback. So it's another layer of input just to help you, because your peers will see things that you don't see. Now, let's see if we've accomplished our objectives for the session. So we have taken a look at what the market is. And while there's a lot of very difficult news there's also some optimism in terms of the potential for interim opportunities, and especially for the interim of taking your search much broader than where you might be geographically looking right now. Really encourage that. So we've talked about your uniqueness and how to articulate it, how to position yourself in the marketplace. And we've provided a structured framework to help you build your first drafts. So that's it for creating your unique value statements. Now, I'd like to open up to questions, and I'd like to ask that you put them in the Q&A section, and we'll answer as many as we can. Now, I'll ask Nancy to take over, and select some questions.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So just want to remind people that to get to the Q&A bar, you're going to hover over your LinkedIn or your Zoom screen, sorry, and click on the Q&A button that you see there in the toolbar. We do have a couple of questions, Kevin. First one that was put into the Q&A was back when you were speaking, I think, about interim versus full-time work. The question here, really more of a statement, but I think looking for a little bit of advice. I would happily spend the rest of my career doing interim work. The big problem is that even before the pandemic, I couldn't earn the same as a permanent role, and that excludes benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that's a really, really good question, and that is going to be, a challenge for some people. Some skills may not pay as high as others. So what it comes down to is, first and foremost, really, really being careful about how you select your unique value skills that you're going to focus in on, and try and pick the ones that are, sort of top of the mind for your particular sector. That will increase your value. Second of all, try and come up with as many case studies that you have of times when you've actually solved those problems, to be able to strengthen your marketing and increase the level of confidence that your targets have. The second, or the last piece of advice is, I would have some courage and really ask. So organizations will pay pretty good money for experts. That's why the consulting firms are able to charge what they charge. Obviously, as an individual, you won't be able to charge the same level of fees, but be bold and ask for a reasonable amount for your skills, because you don't want to shortchange yourself. The difficulty, though, my caution is that when taking a look at your compensation, typically the goal is to replace your salary and your short-term incentive. It's very difficult to replace long-term incentive in any particular engagement. So a way that you could do that is by negotiating a success fee. And you would need to take some time up front to understand the metrics they're at now and where they would like to be, and have some comfort with those metrics, because obviously they can give you any metrics, and try and negotiate a gain share on a metric. So if you're going to save them money, maybe it's your bonus is 5% of savings for the first year. Something of that nature could help you increase the amount that you're going to get.
Thanks, Kevin. There's another question here. It says, it's hard to identify the pain if it's not obvious. Any tips on how to do that?
I would ask other people in industry, because certain pains are really common to a number of different businesses. So what I would do is reach out to some other friends that are in the business, and what have you. So ways of identifying pain. You may not know the individual in the business specifically that you're approaching, but I'll take retail as an example. Everyone is being beat up by Amazon, and they have some very common pains. So industries have common pains. And just like in the example I gave, food manufacturing all have that pain. So take a look at it and see where the issues are. Another really good resource for identifying sector-based pain is all of the big four accounting firms, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, and EY, publish industry reports. And these are usually published quarterly or semi-annually. These reports talk about the issues that those industries are facing right now, and that is their pain. So take a look at those, and you'll have an idea of certain industries, and then you can break it down to certain organizations.
So here's another question, Kevin. It says, if you choose to accept interim, does it reflect bad in your resume progression for a later date when the market bounces back?
25 years ago, it did. Today, no. A lot of the people that you're going to be interacting with are people that have had interim engagements at some point in their career as well. It's becoming more and more common. Organizations are talking about, we've heard the term third industrial or fourth industrial revolution. And that means a lot of it comes down to people are changing the way that they engage skills. Some people feel that up to 50% of organizations are going to be contract and interim in the future. So many of you are going to have a lot of contracts on your resume going forward. So it doesn't have the stigma that it used to have. And our senior executive coaches that work with our C-level folks at LHH will back me on that.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. I think that answered another question as well from Scott, sort of same type of question. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Another question here. I'm having struggles to connect with people for networking meetings. I see people are afraid of being asked for a job, which in many cases is not even available. Can you please provide an example of how to connect with people by LinkedIn or email?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So when you're reaching out to people for networking, quite often people automatically assume job seeker. And that can be a very difficult tag to have on you in a market like this. I would be looking at making it very clear with them that what you're interested in doing, first of all, is understanding a little bit more in terms of their industry and the struggles that they're experiencing, but also to share some of your observations as you've been researching markets and things like that. Basically, try and make it about them as much as you can. And if you want, be so bold as saying, I'm not coming, looking for a job. Maybe you do have one, maybe you don't, but either way, I'd like to, have a discussion.
Great, thank you. Another question here, Kevin, just about, your point of view on leveraging social media or creating a website to promote your competence as a consultant effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way of doing it. But you can also leverage, things like LinkedIn and some of the existing media in order to do that. The difficulty with creating your own website is search engine optimization. If you're hoping the website is going to have you be found, it's not likely going to happen, but it's a good tool to have. So in your arsenal, you should definitely have a selection of resumes. You should have a selection of one-pagers. A lot of people are using timeline graphs these days to represent their background. Some people are putting together a website. If you're going to put together a website, it needs to have a lot of content rather than just brochureware, though. So you might want to there feature a number of case studies of problems you've solved for organizations, and you can get into some real meat there.
All right, so here's another question, Kevin, for you is, how often do you find interim roles converting to permanent?
That's a great question. And that's one of the prime reasons why I think people should consider interim even as part of their full-time search. So people get hired for one of two reasons in interim, either to fill in or to solve a strategic problem. We find that people that are coming in on an interim basis at LHH and spending time with our clients are converting to full-time between 25 and 40% of the time. So it's a decent odds, and you can usually know up front. So for example, if you're going in on an interim basis while they do a search, your odds are pretty good. An organization is pretty intensely involved in hiring an interim in the beginning. And what ends up happening is that they just want to take a breather after they've brought the interim in. After 2 to 3 months, if you've performed well, chances are the search isn't necessary and they just hire you. So I wouldn't ignore it. It's definitely a source of opportunity.
Another couple of quick ones here, Kevin, I think we have time for. First of all, how do you recognize not to oversell yourself? Is there a limit of skills that we can share?
Yes, I think that, if you have 3 to 5, maybe 6, you can't be an expert at everything, right? Really the test is, how many times have you really applied this unique skill for success, and what are the metrics? In other words, how many proof statements do you have? If you have proof, then you're not overselling. I say this to many people. They get asked, how good are you at this? And I say, well, just tell them what you've done. Don't make a value judgment. So the same thing holds true to this, in that if you're really good at this and you have a lot of examples, you're not overselling yourself. So don't be shy, be bold.
So a kind of a companion to that, can you be overqualified for an interim engagement?
Not usually overqualified for interim. In fact, most of the time you will be. The thing is that, excuse me, for my golf analogy, but a lot of times companies want to overclub. So they want somebody that has been there. They've already done this before. They don't want somebody learning on their dime and at their risk. So you're not usually going to be called overqualified on an interim basis because they know it's of a predetermined period of time. And they do know that it has built-in systemic attrition.
Great, thank you. And question here, when is it better to use a one-page resume instead of a full resume or cover letter?
A one-page resume is really good to use in your networking when you're looking for meetings. And I would encourage you to put pieces of your unique value statements in the one-pager. Those would be the highlights of, why should I call Nancy? I'll call Nancy because she's good at this, she's good at this, she's good at this. And those should be the statements in your one-pager. I would use the resume when you're actually engaging for a job. And that is a good way to the other person's question to signal that this is not about a job. This is about, your skills and what you can do for them. So if you're networking and you're sending your resume, then you're asking for a job. If you're sending a one-pager, a profile, you're asking to engage and see how you can help them.
Super, thank you. Just a logistics question here, Kevin, for the Tuesday's workshop. Do we need to come with a UVS draft for Tuesday's session?
Yes, please do, because what we want, anyone that comes does need to have one, because what we're going to try and do is give everyone some airtime to get some feedback in a kind, compassionate environment.
Perfect. And are there other sites other than LinkedIn where interim opportunities are posted?
Yeah, Indeed. Indeed. I've seen a number of them on Indeed. So, and Indeed aggregates everything, so you really don't need to go anywhere.
Okay. And then how many interns are you placing per week?
Right now, I'd rather speak about per month. Right now, the practice is seeing about 3 to 4 a month. And our typical volumes are usually around a dozen. So it gives you an idea of, the way the market is right now. But we are expecting and we are hearing from our clients that come October, once everything has settled down a bit, I don't want to say return to normal, that we're going to see quite a surge over the next little while.
Okay. And are you seeing an uptake in video CVs?
I haven't experienced it myself, no, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
Okay, great. Here's one. I've contacted quite a few people with my elevator pitch that turned me down for a meeting. Can I reapproach them with a unique value statement?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, because I want to make a point on this. So I've been classically trained in sales. I've sold software, I've sold services, etc. And there's a saying that goes something like, selling doesn't begin until you've contacted them for the 5th time. The first few times are just credibility builders. They're intros, they're starting points. It's critically important that you are constantly retouching the contacts that you've made. And I suggest that, don't be a pest, of course. You want to be careful, but I'd say every about 4 to 6 weeks to reach out via email and just remind them that you're still available, and share something that might be of value. I was speaking with one person recently who's starting to do some writing again, and that's their background. They started as a journalist, and I suggested strongly that they start doing that. And so what they're going to do is they're going to start sharing some of those things that they're writing as a way of leaving something of value. So it's a great way to do it.
Super. And here's a question, Kevin, just about the case study with Bill that you spoke about earlier. Numbers that you shared, are these warm contacts that he sent emails to, or cold calls?
To the best of my knowledge, they were brand new contacts. He may have known a few of them, but they were largely people that he was contacting out of the blue.
Thank you. And then just one more question here around presuming that the UVS will be value or future focused, which shows how you can help organizations. And should it be short and sweet?
Yes. Yeah. You don't, anything more than, a couple of sentences is too much, because really what you're trying to do is spur some conversation. So you want to leave some room for them to ask questions.
All right. So thank you so much, Kevin. I think that's all the questions that we really have time for today. So I'll hand it back to you just for some closing comments.
Thank you very much. So I want to wrap up now with what we're going to do is a link will be sent to you for a brief survey. We would really value your input, and please make it as honest as you're comfortable with. This is the first time through with this particular offering. We're planning to do it likely on a quarterly basis. And so if there's something we need to add, something we need to subtract, just let us know, please. Very important. We're going to be sending a follow-up email tomorrow. That's going to have the links to the registration for the workshop on Tuesday. It will have a copy of the framework that I presented so that you can work with it to do your homework if you want to attend that workshop. And also a link to the webinar recording so that if you've missed anything, you can go back and review it and become familiar again. And if there's anything, please reach out to me by email. My email address is there. I'd also encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn if you're interested in receiving additional articles that I'll be publishing in the future. I plan to start publishing again in a couple of weeks now that this project has been completed. So I want to thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you. We wish you much success in your search, and goodbye and have a great day from LHH Knightsbridge. Goodbye.